Welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Chief Content Officer at Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. Because of the Thanksgiving holiday, we are recording this early this week on Tuesday, November 26th. President-elect Donald Trump continues his transition, filling cabinet seats and preparing for his inauguration in January. His new border czar, Tom Homan, gave the Center Square an exclusive interview this week where he described the incoming Trump administration's plan to deport an untold number of foreign nationals in the U.S. illegally, prioritizing those who pose the greatest threat to national security and personal safety. Joining me to discuss this is Casey Harper, Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for the Center Square. Happy Thanksgiving week, Casey.
Happy Thanksgiving, Dan. What do you got planned this week?
We are driving out east to visit, to be with family on Thanksgiving. I'll be in Ohio for the holiday. How about you?
I'll be staying in D.C. for Thanksgiving, but we're going to, of course, meet up with friends and all that and do the Thanksgiving thing. It's going to be great.
Well, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving holiday with your family. Casey, so Tom Homan, the President-elect Trump's new border czar, he talked exclusively with the Center Square this week where he outlined his plan to prioritize deporting violent foreign nationals who are in the country illegally. There's been all kinds of questions about the President-elect's deportation plan. Why don't you get us started on it?
Yeah, and shout out to Bethany Blankley for getting this great interview. I encourage everyone to read it at thecentersquare.com. It's on our homepage. It's a very long, it's a long story, but it's got a lot of good details, some things that, the media is just not reporting on. And so, we learned from Homan in this interview what some of the process, and I believe there's going to be more stories to come on this, but really, how's this going to look? We can talk about mass deportation as the president has promised. And of course, when he selected Homan to be in his cabinet, it was a signal to the ICE, to Border Patrol, to America, that he was taking deportation and the immigration issue very seriously, because Homan is about as hawkish as you can get on this issue. He is, he's making the case in the media. He's saying, unapologetic about deportation. There's this famous clip that's gone viral recently where, someone in the media asks him, was there a way to avoid family separation in deportation? And he says, of course. The families can be deported together. He's got that kind of Trump edge, that unapologetic, this is what we're doing and this is what the American people want. And Trump has the mandate right now. He won the popular vote, big win in the electoral college, and he's using it. So as far as the details, I think, one thing that's, worth pointing out is the plan is going to prioritize deporting, national security threats and violent criminals. Believe it or not, there are plenty of violent criminals that have been led into the country, from, countries south of our border in particular, that just come in and kind of get a second chance at life, or at a second chance at a life of crime, depending on who it is. And so that's a big problem. As far as the national security threats, Dan, we've talked about this on the podcast and written about it at thecentersquare.com, but I think it's really been underreported on that there have been hundreds and hundreds of people come across both the southern border and the northern border who are on the terror watch list, or connect, which basically means they have some kind of ties that are just very suspicious. Maybe their brother is identified as a terrorist in Syria or something like that, where they're connected to terrorists enough to make the terror watch list. It makes them very, potentially dangerous, makes them, of course, means they could be part of a terror network or a sleeper cell or something like that. But we know that there's hundreds of people that have come into the country who are on that list. And so that's something that, I think a lot of people will make sense to prioritize. But with that being said, it's not going to stop there. Homan made clear that, there are millions of illegal immigrants, and he's going to try to systematically start deporting all of them, or most of them.
And Trump has said, too, he plans to declare the border crisis a national emergency, which would allow him to call up the military to aid with those deportation efforts. Let's just quickly transition, Casey. Another thing that Trump has said he's going to do is impose tariffs on goods that are imported into the country. There's some new news on that this week as well.
Yeah, that's right. Trump announced basically just released a statement. Who knows how much he's communicating with these countries, but he released a statement saying that he's on day one, January 20th, he's gonna basically announce, enact a 25% tariff. 25% is very large on all products coming into the United States from Canada and Mexico until they do, what's needed to solve the border crisis that's allowing all the fentanyl and the millions of migrants to come in through the country. So, of course, I wonder, Dan, if this is, I'm interested to hear what you think. I think this could just be a great negotiating tactic that we may never actually see this tariff enforced, because we could easily see on January 22nd, Trump says, I've been in talks with Canada and Mexico. They've agreed to we're going to reinstate remain in Mexico. They're putting their own militaries on the border. And because of their, we've basically solved the border crisis and there's going to be no tariffs now. Right. He's kind of setting himself up to take this policy back as a sign that he's declared victory on the issue. But if this goes through, it will have huge impacts on Americans, on the North American economy.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that this is a negotiation tactic by President-elect Trump. He is trying to force foreign countries' hands. During his first term, he accused NATO countries of not properly funding their security, and he threatened NATO countries with withholding funding until they ponied up what they promised to pay. So I think this tariffs thing is all part of that as well. One final thing, Casey, before we have to wrap, Special Counsel Jack Smith on Monday requested to dismiss his federal election interference case against President-elect Trump. The court agreed to do that, but without prejudice, meaning he could bring it back after the first Trump term.
Yeah, but that's really a theme of some of these legal charges and investigations, that the DOJ has a longstanding policy of not prosecuting sitting presidents. And so, I think it's going to take a lot of, I think that we're probably seeing the last of these dismissed cases, because to prosecute someone who's, 85 years old, was reelected with the popular vote, and who can't run for office again, I think it'll just seem vindictive and be a bad look for the FBI and the DOJ. So I think these cases are probably done unless Trump does something out of the ordinary, which, he does tend to do that.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Casey. Listeners can keep up with all of these stories and more at thecentersquare.com.